Hello, welcome to TVWAN News. I'm Maricela Keleton. In this edition, BPNG warns government of borrowing, cybersecurity vital with increased users, and Maoris beat indigenous 1610. Director for Medical Services at the Port Moresby General Hospital said the country is going through its fourth surge of COVID-19, which started almost 3 weeks ago and had affected the staff roster due to many catching the virus. Therefore, Dr. Sobi is happy with the recent donation of cash and medical goods by Vitis Group of Companies through its Fortuna Pharmacy to the hospital.
Director for Medical Services of Port Moresby General Hospital, Dr. Cornelius said there is a big contrast to what was experienced in September-October 2021 to what is being experienced now. Dr. Sobi reflected on how many of the Port Moresby General Hospital staff tested positive to COVID-19 very quickly in recent weeks and how it affected their operations.
It has been a very difficult and challenging time over the last 2 years. We are the clinical front. We focus on clinical care of patients that end up in the hospital. So it's been not only COVID patients, but the general TB, pneumonia, malaria, and other injuries, surgical conditions that present to the hospital.
He said with the latest surge, the disease is spreading very fast and easily, getting almost everyone involved.
A good number of our hospital staff were sick over the last couple of days, maybe last 2 weeks, but many have recovered. Many were mild illness and they've recovered and come back to work. During that period where staff was sick, it affected our rosters. But I'm glad to say that today many of those staff have reported to work and keeping our services going. So at this point in time, there is no indication for us to scale down services. A good number of our hospital staff were sick over the last couple of days, maybe last 2 weeks, but many have recovered. Many were mild illness and they've recovered and come back to work. During that period where staff was sick, it affected our rosters. But I'm glad to say that today many of those staff have reported to work and keeping our services going. So at this point in time, there is no indication for us to scale down services.
He added that the donation from Vitis Industries of medical consumables and PPEs are high-moving items at this point in time, especially in the last 18 months. He thanked Vitis Group of Companies for the donation of 5,000 kina cash and 35,000 kina worth of medical consumables, soft drinks and water which were donated recently. Frida Kana, TVWAN News.
Eastern Highlands Provincial Health Authority has opened a new COVID-19 care center at the National Sports Institute to alleviate burden of the Gurkha Provincial Hospital. On Friday, 11th February, the PHA opened the new care center at the National Sports Institute premises by converting the existing indoor complex into a 100-bed holding capacity for serious and acute cases of COVID-19 patients. The 100,000 kina worth facility was made possible by the assistance of Kainantu Mining Limited jointly with the Eastern Highlands Provincial Government. This center will greatly relieve pressure from the Gurkha Provincial Hospital's current facility. The opening was officiated jointly by the Chief Executive Officer of Kainantu Mining Limited, John Lewins, and Eastern Highlands Governor Peter Numu. Acting Governor of Central Bank, Benny Popoitai, has cautioned the government not to depend too much on borrowings to fund its expenditure because PNG is already highly indebted, but instead focus on growing its revenue base.
The central bank has warned the government not to depend on excessive borrowing to fund its expenditure. Acting Governor Benny Popoitai in the June 2021 Quarterly Economic Bulletin stated that although fiscal support is invaluable during times of crisis, the government should realign and regain prudent control and discipline in its expenditure, while putting more emphasis on growing and improving its revenue sources. He cautioned the government not to depend too much on borrowings to fund its expenditure as the country is already highly indebted. He, however, encourages the government to focus on growing the revenue base. Mr. Popoitai stated that to support economic recovery, most economies, including PNG, through their respective governments, continue to provide various fiscal measures, while their monetary authorities maintained an accommodative monetary policy stance. He said to support economic recovery, the Bank of PNG has maintained its accommodative monetary policy stance since the easing in March 2020. The Kina facility rate and cash reserve requirement remained at 3% and 7% respectively. Freddy Mou, TVWAN News.
The total government debt outstanding as at the end of June 2021 was over 43 million kina, or 47.7% of the GDP. Over the last 3 years, the government's debt servicing for both domestic and external loans have been around 10% of its annual expenditure.
The total government debt as of June last year stands at 43,238 million kina. This comprised of 24,531.7 million kina in domestic debt and 18,706.3 million kina in external debt, an increase of 2,812.9 million kina from the previous quarter, reflecting net borrowing during the quarter. Total government deposits at depository corporations decreased by 789.9 million kina to 4,096.6 million kina in the June quarter of 2021 and reflected drawdown of government deposits to meet expenditure given low revenue. In November 2021, the government passed the 2022 national budget with a projected expenditure of 22,174.8 million kina and a projected revenue of 16,190.2 million kina, giving a fiscal deficit of 5,984.7 million kina, which is 5.9% of GDP. This will increase the level of public debt stock to 52,762.2 million kina, or 51.9% of GDP. The government will finance the deficit through a combination of domestic and external financing. It plans to raise 3,744.7 million kina of the 5,984.7 million kina through external borrowing, while the remaining 2,240 million kina will be financed through domestic sources. Of the total expenditure, over 50% of the 2022 budget is marked for operational expenditure, while 39.5% and 10.5% are for capital expenditure and loan service payments respectively. Over the last 3 years, the government's debt servicing for both domestic and external loans have been around 10% of its annual expenditure. Freddy Mou, TVWAN News.
13 civilians alleged to have damaged police property at the Bogia police station in Medan have been charged with malicious damages and will appear in court tomorrow, 14th February. Medan Provincial Police Commander Acting Superintendent Mazuk Rubiang said the men were alleged to have damaged 3 police vehicles and the station itself. They also injured a couple of Bogia traffic officers. The attack was in relation to the shooting death of 28-year-old Jerome Handui at Bogia Station. The policeman alleged to have shot and killed Handui has been arrested and charged with willful murder. He is being detained at the Jomba police station in Medan. PPC Rubiang reminded relatives of the deceased that Bogia Station police property belongs to the state and not the policemen involved in the shooting. This is TVWAN News. Stay tuned for more after the break. Welcome back. The number of internet users in PNG has increased by 270,000 between 2020 and 2021. According to Data Reportal, there were 1.37 million internet users in PNG in January 2021. The internet penetration in PNG stood at approximately 15% in January 2021. This poses a need to improve cybersecurity.
Internet users in the country has surged by 25% between 2020 and 2021. However, senior manager in Deloitte's risk and consulting practice in PNG, Albert Kimas, says as PNG catches up in its adoption of digital technologies, there is an urgent need to improve cybersecurity. Kimas says PNG businesses were prone to common ransomware attacks, a type of disruptive software that prevents users from accessing their system or personal files and demands ransom payment in order to regain access. With the establishment of the Cybercrime Code Act 2016 in place, it defines and establishes acts or omissions that constitute offenses committed through the use of information and communication technology or cybercrime. National Information and Communication Technology Authority or NICTA is responsible for the implementation of the National ICT Act 2009. Despite the launch of PNG National Cybersecurity Center in 2018, the Finance Department was still active in 2021. The center was said to protect PNG in the long term as the country will benefit from the advanced communication technology while protecting critical information and communication technology infrastructure from incidents. The ECAS froze the government space system, the integrated financial management system, and demanded payment of Bitcoin to return access to the government. This begs the question, is the National Cybersecurity Center well equipped to protect public information held in government departments? Freddy Mou, TVWAN News.
Power supply from the Ramu hydropower station into Kundiawa, Minj, Bans, Mount Hagen, Yalibu, Mendi and Wabeg has been fully restored. Restoration time took longer than expected due to bad weather conditions and challenges on site. Tower 101 at Dumum village in Chimbu province was brought down to the ground by fallen trees intentionally chopped down by locals. PNG Power acting CEO Obed Bhatia commended the operations team on the ground for working tirelessly over the last 7 days to ensure power supply was restored safely for PPL customers in the Highlands region. Datacore fiber optic services utilizing the same power supply infrastructure were also restored. Grand Chief and Governor General of Papua New Guinea, Sir Bob Dadai, will host a major fundraising event for the PNG Tonga community in the disaster-stricken island Kingdom of Tonga. Grand Chief Sir Bob and Lady Emmeline gave their support to the PNG Tonga community in Tonga in its efforts to raise funds for those affected by the recent underwater volcanic eruption and tsunami that occurred last month. The PNG Tonga community formed a fundraising committee that will take charge of fundraising activities from PNG towards Tonga.
Fundraising committee will stage a one-off fundraising event next month in March, with all proceeds going to the Tonga High Commission in Australia and sent to the affected communities. A target of 500,000 kina has been set by the committee, with hopes of achieving this through kind donations and contributions from friends of Tonga in PNG. Sir Bob said that as patron of the committee, he was grateful to the Prime Minister on his recent announcement of funding support and as relief assistance to the people of Tonga, adding that as neighbors and families like other Pacific nations, we assist each other in times of need. A spokesperson for the PNG Tonga community delivered a message of thanks for the support in cash and kind given by its neighbors of PNG. The main emphasis is to be able to raise the much-needed funds towards the reconstruction efforts in Tonga. The people of Tonga greatly appreciate the kind gesture from Wantoks here in PNG coming to their aid in this time of need. The PNG Tonga Fundraising Committee, as the official fundraiser for the Tonga disaster relief in PNG, urges other private fundraising committees to collaborate as a team in working towards the same cause. Frida Kana, TVWAN News.
Uya Elementary in the Raikos district received a double classroom recently as part of its social responsibility to the mine-impacted communities under its Community Development Fund. Ramuniko funded construction of the new infrastructure at a cost of 50,000 kina. The new classroom was built by a local building contractor in just over 3 weeks. Teacher in charge Maringo Ilaba said the new double classroom will ease the problem of space and would accommodate preparatory and elementary 1 pupils this year. School Board Chairman Denny Gagu thanked Ramuniko and the Coastal Pipeline Landowner Association for the assistance. Ramuniko's liaison officer David Kurame urged youths in the area to respect the school facility, while the builder's spokesman Kare Ango called on the people around Uya to work together to see positive change in their community. Ryla English, representing Pari Village in the 2021-2022 Miss Hiri Hanenamo pageant, has been crowned queen. After 2 days of going through the various challenges, today was the final day of judging, and all 10 contestants put in all they had left. 21-year-old Miss English stood out from the rest and was crowned in front of a crowd of spectators, families, friends, and relatives at the Sir Hibet Mari Stadium just before 5:30 this afternoon. The Miss Hanenamo Queen thanked all who made the event possible. She especially thanked her sister contestants, saying they have built a strong bond having gone through the pageant program together. Meantime, runner-up to the Miss Hanenamo Queen was Yan Guba Hitolo from Elevala Village. Here are the highlights from this afternoon's crowning. TV1 News continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Since 1992, the achievements of PNG's top sporting personalities have been recognized through the annual SB Sports Awards. PNG Olympic Committee will launch its 30th SB Sports Awards for 2022 at the Sejong Gais Indoor Stadium on Monday, 14 February. Every year, there are 11 award categories ranging from Male Athlete and Female Athlete of the Year to Sports Administrator of the Year and Sports Media of the Year. There is also the People's Choice Awards, where the public votes directly for the finalists of their choice from among the top 4 categories. Dates and host venue for the event will be made known tomorrow during the launching. The Maori All-Stars defeated the Indigenous All-Stars 16-10 in a fiery clash at Combank Stadium. In a back-and-forth encounter in wet and slippery conditions, it all came down to a nail-biting final 2 minutes of play.
A relentless defensive display in the wet from the Maoris has seen them hold off the Indigenous side in this year's All-Stars clash. The Maoris led gallantly in the middle of the field by Captain Joe Tapini, who claimed man of the match honours, overcame an early deficit to run away with a 16-10 victory at Combank Stadium. They've now won 2 of the 4 clashes between the two sides since they first played each other in 2019. Last year's match ended in a draw. Gold Coast forward Fifita vowed as the 21-year-old bulldozed 3 defenders during a 50-meter burst to assist a Ramian try in the 12th minute before being cleaned up by Rapana. The Maori side struck back when halfback Cody Nikorima scrolled over the line thanks to a couple of smart offloads from his co-captain Joe Tapini and prop James Fisher-Harris. SN Masters then put the Maori in the lead early in the second half after benefiting from a backline shift. With Ramian Sin bin for a professional foul late in the third quarter, the Maori took advantage and extended the margin when Tapini powered his way to the in-goal. 19-year-old St. George Illawarra flyer Tyrell Sloan pulled a try back from the Indigenous All-Stars in the final term as he zoomed onto a lovely kick from 5'8" Nico Hines. A desperate shift out to the left on the final siren almost saw captain Josh Adako score the winning try, but the play was snuffed out by Maoris, who were the deserved victors after dominating the middle of the field for much of the match. In the Women's All-Stars clash, Indigenous All-Stars 18 beat Maoris All-Stars 8. Godwin Eki, TVWAN Sports.
A number of sporting codes have completed testing and screening at High Performance PNG at the Sir John Guy's Indoor Stadium. Squash and tennis athletes were some of the first.
Since starting of the testing and screening for PNG elite athletes in preparations for the Mini Pacific Games and the Commonwealth Games, the sporting codes who have completed their process are golf, squash, tennis, table tennis and weightlifting. On Monday, 14th February, athletics will conduct their screening and testing, followed by table tennis para on Tuesday, volleyball on Wednesday and VAR on Thursday. Albert Veratau, CEO for PNG Sports Foundation and Director for PNG High Performance Cornelius Papau, said those going through the screening and testing program are selected athletes only.
It's a huge call for us to have them train under high performance. Athletics will be having the training also here, and in Ley, testings will be happening in Ley, and so athletes traveling from islands will be coming down to Ley for the testing, especially for the athletics.
Cornelius said 2022 is a challenging year for the athletes. They have the 2022 Pacific Mini Games in Saipan, Northern Marianas, scheduled to take place from the 17th to the 25th of June, and then they have the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, UK from 28th of July to 8th of August. In the months leading up to these two events, athletes will go through training and trials to qualify. Team PNG will be represented by selected sporting codes only at the two games. Godwin Eki, TVWAN Sports.
PNG Kickboxing President Stanley Nandex is planning to host a kickboxing tournament where professional boxers will fight until the last man is left standing. The tournament, named Governor's Cup Last Man Standing, is expected over 100 fighters from around the country to converge in Port Moresby in the next couple of weeks. The aim behind this event is to iron out PNG's top 10 professional fighters who can be marketed to fight international bouts in country or overseas. The event is also aimed at reviving the sport of kickboxing in PNG. Dates to when the event will take place will be made known in the coming days. And that ends the news tonight. Remember to apply the following simple measures to prevent transmission of the coronavirus. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water, cough or sneeze into your elbow, and exercise social distancing. If you are feeling sick, please stay at home. You can also call the COVID-19 hotline number for more information or assistance. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.